So I would like to welcome you all to today's Veterans Day Assembly. And there's a few thanks I would like to give first. And first off, I'd like to thank our Student Council for hosting this special event today. Ms. Turan and Ms. Atkis for helping take care of the logistics. But especially to the 7 veterans on stage here who are joining us today. And you'll be hearing from them in a few moments. Veterans Day was first recognized by President Woodrow Wilson in 1919. Back then it was called Armistice Day, and the date marked the end of World War I, which occurred on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918. In 1954, President Dwight Eisenhower, also a veteran, changed the name from Armistice Day to Veterans Day as a way to honor all American vets, and we continue to honor veterans today. 7th graders, you have grown up in a time when, generally speaking, great respect is shown to the men and women in our armed forces. It is not uncommon to see a member of the military in uniform in an airport, a restaurant, or a coffee shop, and for people to approach them and say, "Thank you for your service." Now on Veterans Day, many businesses offer veterans a free coffee, a free oil change, a free haircut, or some other small token of their appreciation for their service to our nation. But sadly, this has not always been the case in the United States. There was a time during and after the Vietnam War when servicemen and women returning from home from Vietnam were not treated well or with respect. They were certainly not celebrated. When I was in 7th grade, which was in the post-Vietnam War era, Veterans Day was not considered a big deal, at least where I grew up. And I looked at Veterans Day as a day off from school, a chance to sleep in, watch some TV, hang out with my friends possibly, but I honestly was not thinking about veterans. At that time, it was more likely to ignore the soldiers or just not even acknowledge their existence, the veterans. It took some time, but thank goodness a lot has changed since then. Today we take time to honor many of our veterans who are our relatives and neighbors, and especially our own veterans who are joining us here today for their patriotism, love of country, and willingness to serve and sacrifice for all of us. So tomorrow, you do have a day off, so go ahead and sleep in a little bit, watch some TV, play, hang out, but please take a moment to remember what is said here today and to remember what the day is for. Nothing I can say can express how appreciative we are to the veterans here on stage, but your respectful audience behavior and full attention will speak louder than words. So thank you. So actually, before we even start, let's give our veterans a round of applause. One of the things we do when trying to find vets to come speak and invite them is to find people that would have a connection to the school or to you as students very closely. And our first veteran is Dr. Stein. He'll come up in a moment. In addition to serving in the New York Guard and being a member of the Jewish War Veterans group, he was a staff member here at TCMS for 33 years. When I started my career, he and I taught together. He was a science teacher. He also served on the Brighton School Board. So please welcome Dr. Mort Stein.
Good afternoon. I had to check my watch and see if it was still morning or it was afternoon, but thank you very much for inviting us here to share some of what we believe Veterans Day means to us and some of the important things that we can share with you. I know that Dr. Malloy said only take a minute or two, but he knows me better than that. I'm going to be up here for a while. I'm going to take you back to when I was teaching here 33 years ago at 12 Corners Middle School. And those of you who had Mr. Telex, that was the room that I taught in for 33 years. And as I look around, I see some of the students that I taught here and also taught at Nazareth College, and I'll wave to Mr. Shapiro. He was one of my students right here at 12 Corners Middle, and I believe I taught your sister too, didn't I? That's what I go back to a different time. When I was here, when I was teaching, I also coached modified track and field. I also coached boys and girls soccer. And this was our uniforms. And I'm sure some of your brothers or sisters, or your moms or dads, may remember them as the Brighton Barons. Now, I wanted to share that with you. As far as military goes, I served almost 4 years in the New York Guard, and I enjoyed every minute of it. It was a lot of fun, made a lot of friends. The other things that I encourage you, I'm just going to step back again for a minute. I encourage you that when it comes time for you to making a decision, do you go to college, do you go to the military? But I think there's a good opportunity for all of you sitting here to do both. Go to college and be active in the military. There are organizations such as ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps. There is the NROTC here in Rochester at the U of R, and there is the AROTC at University of Buffalo. So if you decide to participate in the military, there's a golden opportunity to have some of your tuition paid for, as well as spending some time and giving some of your life to protecting this country, which we all adore. The reason why I brought you back in time when I was here, started teaching here back in 1973, is 12 Corners Middle School was at that time a 5th grade through 8th grade school. We had 2 middle schools. We had French Road, which was 5-8, and 12 Corners Middle, which was 5-8. I had a young man in my class. What was interesting is that when you had whoever your 5th grade teacher was, you also had that same teacher in 6th grade. I had a young man, 5th and 6th grade, very bright, very smart, a lot of fun, played a lot of sports here in Brighton. And he went into the military and became a pilot, a helicopter pilot in the military, in the Army. And the reason why I bring that up is because he was killed in Afghanistan. A student that I loved, a student that I enjoyed working with. He had a lot to offer the country. He had a lot to offer the world. But unfortunately, his life was cut short because he was killed in Afghanistan. Now, many of you probably walk by this particular monument every day of the week. If you go into the town hall and if you walk up the aisle, you will see a black marble memorial. Please stop and read it, because the young man who sat in one of those seats many years ago, his name was Eric Smith. And to this day, I remember having the privilege of working and teaching this young man. Also, I taught for 25 years in the evenings at Nazareth College. And again, a lot of these young men and women were destined to be some of the best teachers that could be offered to you. Unfortunately, 2 of my graduate students were also killed in Afghanistan. They gave their life for a purpose, so that you can be sitting there learning from the best teachers that you have the opportunity to be with. Was it worth it? Yes, it was to them. They were willing to give everything so that you can be sitting there listening to us. Thank you for inviting me.
The next veteran we'll introduce is Mr. Larry Shulman. Mr. Shulman served in the United States Army from 1958 to 1961, and he was stationed, amongst other places, in Germany. Please welcome Mr. Shulman.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you today. I was a Cold War veteran, basically, which means I was in during peacetime. We were protecting, at the time, Germany from an invasion from Russia, and we hoped that it never happened. So basically, my experience is a little different than some of the other people on the stage. However, Veterans Day is very important to me, as well as it should be important to you. Veterans Day basically reminds us that there were veterans that fought and died for our rights. And basically, we need our rights, we need to be free, and we also need somebody to protect us. So basically, we would like to have you all appreciate any veteran that you may know in your family, in your friend's family, or in the community. And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today.
Next up, I'm going to invite Mr. Gary Ginsberg to the mic. He is also a veteran from the U.S. Army. He served for 33 years, rose to the rank of Commander Sergeant Major, was deployed in the Vietnam era, and also served in Germany. Please welcome Mr. Ginsberg.
Good afternoon. A couple of things I'd like to share with you, and I'm going to try not to repeat what my fellow veterans have said. I'll basically take a little different twist. I served both in the States and overseas, and 30-some years, it was a great journey. Ups and downs, but more positive than a negative, but nothing is perfect. And today, I'm active in the Jewish War Veterans. It's the oldest veterans organization in the United States, not the largest, but it is the oldest. And there are two things I'll share with you about the Jewish War Veterans of the United States. The organization, we do advocate for veterans today, but it actually started out as a strong voice against hatred, discrimination, and anti-Semitism. That goes back to the 1890s, and of course, some of those challenges are still with us today. Some of those alligators we're still trying to wrestle to the ground, and a large hungry alligator is sometimes difficult to deal with. But in addition, I do want to point out that, and I get asked quite a bit, you know, what is the big lesson? What did you learn primarily serving in the Army for over 30 years? And there's many ways to answer the question, and I kind of like to keep things simple. You know, when in doubt, keep it simple. And the Army develops 7 core values or beliefs, and I'm going to share them with you. Very simple words and phrases: loyalty, duty, honor, selfless service, personal courage, integrity, and respect. And I think I captured all 7. The other military services have slight different core values. You can do a Google search and find out what it is. It's not restricted information. It's out there in the public domain. But for me, trying to still live my life adhering to the Army core values, I find myself in a position where I can kind of try to make the right decision. You know, displaying personal courage, speaking your opinion, being respectful, integrity, knowing right from wrong, developing that sense of duty, always trying to do your best. And I came in here a few minutes early today, and you know, I walked around. At some point, I was taken over to the principal's office. When I was in 7th grade, if you went to the principal's office, you're in trouble, okay? But actually, I I got to meet some of the folks, Dr. Malloy and the assistant vice principal, and I looked around because that's generally what I do, situational awareness, and I noticed the Brighton Middle School, there, I believe, were 5 core beliefs, and 2 of them overlap with the Army Corps values, which is very interesting: integrity and respect. And these are not just words. These are ideas, these are values, these are beliefs that can help point you in the right direction. You may hear this from your parents, from your teachers, but I'm here to tell you that yes, it will point you in the right direction. Regardless of what you do. In a few years, you'll be coming out of the middle school, graduating from high school. Some of you may go to college. Some of you may pursue career opportunities in the workforce. Some of you may go to the military. Only about 7% of American citizens have earned the title of veteran. Not just everybody can get in. The military, in fact, is not just for everybody. But nonetheless, I try to stay true to those core values. I would encourage you to take a look at that yourself and try to employ or utilize those core beliefs. As I say, I found it very interesting. I had no idea until I got in here this morning that 2 of your core beliefs overlap with the United States Army. So it doesn't matter if you're in the military. Some of those things apply, yes, even as a civilian. And the final thought I'll leave you with is all veterans gave something in defense of our nation to keep us strong and free. Some veterans gave everything. Thank you.
Several of the vets have been here before. We've done this assemblies many times, but our next veteran is new to us. His name is Mr. David Petrie. He served in the United States Army from 1966 through 69, was in Vietnam, and also later served through 2000 in National Guard, and also served in Germany. He also has the distinction of being McKenna Keenan's grandfather. So please welcome Mr. Petrie.
Well, thanks for the introduction, appreciate it, and thank you for inviting us. It's been a long journey, and I know most of you are bored right now, because I was at 7th grade, 8th grade. But the purpose of here is understanding that when he mentioned earlier about not being respected and coming home as a veteran, well, I was one of those. Give me a second. When I came home in '69, I was told not to wear my uniform out of Vietnam. Get on the bus, have your food, go home. It's changed. I'm glad it has, because you folks really need to know what it's like to be a veteran and helping out brotherhood. Because without these folks up here, I probably wouldn't have been able to make it through. I didn't have it easy when I went through the military, but throughout the years and through the things that have the supports come through, family, kids like you, it's been good. And I see more and more people trying to acknowledge the veterans, which they really need. We acknowledge you kids as you're coming through and coming up and support your sports and support your grades and try to help you out. And I'm seeing that more and more, and I appreciate it. Yes, I went through Vietnam. I did go back. I left. I didn't want anything to do with the military. And for some reason, I got that itch again. I couldn't be away from my brothers, and I joined the National Guards. Stayed in for over 30 years. Went to Desert Storm. Went to Iceland. Went to prison strikes in '79. So we've done it all. We've helped. And I'd like to see, and I have seen more and more people with the flags, bringing the flags out and understanding what it's all about. So to me, I've spent my time in my military. Veterans Day is a time where we should celebrate those who have put service before yourself. Those are our patriots. I want to thank you.
Okay, before I introduce our next vet, I just want to say we're going to do a little something different after his speech. So I'm going to invite up Mr. Jimmy Highsmith. Mr. Highsmith was in the United States Air Force. He served for 10 years and reached the rank of Staff Sergeant E5. He was served in both Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm. The thing that's a little different, he's going to come up and say he's a musician, he's got his saxophone, he's going to play a little song for us, but then after that, we do have one more vet. So when he's done, that's not the end of the assembly. Mr. Highsmith.
Thank you. It's a real honor to be here today with you folks. I want to thank these guys. I think I'm the youngest vet up here. And as our last vet said, a lot of vets had a hard time coming home from Vietnam. My dad was a Vietnam vet. I was also a Cold War vet. I served in the 80s, but I did serve during Desert Storm, Desert Shield. When he came back home, we were met with arms of love by other veterans. So we do appreciate what those vets before us have done to make it easy for us as vets. I would ask you folks, when you see our vets, say thank you for their service. You know, I both went to college, UVR, and did the Air Force. I did both. And I'm thankful for the opportunity to do both. It has definitely made me the man I am today. I would encourage anybody, if you don't feel like college is your way to go, look at the military, enjoy the military. I have many great friends to this day from my military time. I got a record deal after 10 years of service and got out of the military. I wish I stayed in my 20 years, but it is what it is. I will say this though, this is something important I tell my kids all the time. Understand the difference between Veterans Day and Memorial Day. It's very important. Veterans Day, we celebrate our vets. But Memorial Day, don't tell me happy Memorial Day. That's to remember the vets who died and served this nation. So please remember that. A lot of people don't understand the difference between Memorial Day and Veterans Day. So, all right, and I'm honored to play a little something for you. I want to play America the Beautiful in honor of my fellow vets, and all of you, and all the vets in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Highsmith. Okay, I'm actually not sure where we are on time, but I do want to say if the bell rings, please stay seated. We're going to extend the assembly until the last veteran has a chance to speak. And I do want to introduce Mr. Stuart Bloom. He is a member of both the United States Navy and the Marine Corps, served from 1962 through 68. Was also, saw service in Vietnam. It was on a submarine, and he participated in the Cuban blockade. So please welcome Mr. Bloom. Thank you.
All right, before we get going, did you recognize that song? What was it? America the Beautiful, beautiful. I just want to go on and say, it was June of 1961 when I graduated from high school. July of 61, I went into the Navy. I got through with boot camp and got my field training. And I was shipped down to Charleston, South Carolina on my first ship. And in that time, I was a part of the Cuban blockade. And I did that for a little bit, which was very interesting with the shadowing and the challenging of these Russian merchant ships, sending missiles to Cuba. I ended up going to submarine school, graduated from sub school, and I'm going to hit you with a little bit of history now. Does anybody, if anybody has studied, there is a U.S. submarine laying on the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. It's called the USS Thrasher. I had orders for that boat. I couldn't make it because there was a bad snowstorm here in Rochester, and the planes were not flying. I said to myself, do I want to go in the submarines? And ended up in the Navy volunteering for Vietnam. Well, I went over there and I was attached to the United States Marine Corps, and I ended up on the patrol boat river, going up and down the river in Vietnam. I was on a landing party and I heard a click. The next thing I know, I woke up in the hospital. From what I understand, what my fellow Marines said to me was, his gun jammed and he turned around and swung the butt of the rifle and hit me in the forehead, knocked me out. They took care of him. I came home, and as my other fellow Vietnam vet said, it was not nice. I got off the plane and I was spit at. Very damaging. I ended up going back in the submarines, finished up my tour. But I'm going to say one thing. This program here at 12 Corners and French Road has been going on, thanks to Dr. Stein, for about 10 or 12 years. You kids were my welcome home. Thank you.
Quick time check. We only have a few minutes left here, but I do want to just say a special thank to all the veterans. There's personal moments, the little things catch you, and it's emotional. As I was reading Mr. Bloom's description, my father was in the United States Navy and was also a part of the Cuban blockade, and he's since passed on. But as I said earlier today and in this assembly, you are going to have the day off tomorrow. I just hope that as you reflect on that tomorrow, that you remember some of what the veterans here said today. If you do see a veteran, please thank them for their service. There are Veterans Day celebrations happening tomorrow. I know one is happening at Brighton Town Hall with the Brighton Town Supervisor, Mr. Maley, and Mr. Highsmith is also going to be performing there. I believe that's at 2 o'clock. Is that correct? Yeah. 2 o'clock at Brighton Town Hall. We only have just about a minute left, that you can stay seated, but let's give our veterans one.